I have never had a conversation with somebody about my writing where the topic of publishing hasn't been raised by the other person. Are you published? Have you thought about publishing? When are you going to get published? You should publish. I think people mean well when they ask these things. I think there's a default assumption out there that anyone who is writing ultimately has their sights set on publishing. Writing as a hobby seems to a lot of people like this unthinkable, strange concept. I get probably a dozen comments a month on this channel about my own writing. I've talked about this before, and a lot of people seem to think that it's weird that I'm not here talking about writing while simultaneously shoving a published work down people's throats. In extreme cases, this is used as an argument that I shouldn't be allowed to make this content at all, that I in this channel lack some sort of legitimacy, even though the whole point of platforms like YouTube is for random people to be able to post whatever kind of content they want, not to provide some curated, gate-kept, walled garden of legitimate content. This is and always has been a writing channel, not a publishing channel. Lots of people conflate those things, and I think it just speaks to the difficulty that a lot of the public has with separating the act of writing from the act of publishing. I make content for people who are engaged in the act of writing. That content is about the process of writing. That content is drawn from my own experiences through the process of writing, supplemented maybe by research and opinions from other people and stuff like that. The point of this channel is to help people who are engaged in writing. That writing might be going towards publishing or it might be going towards some other goal. I very seldom talk about marketing or publishing because frankly, I have very little experience with that. This confuses people, I think, because I talk a lot about what works and what doesn't work within a novel, and a lot of people, I think, automatically assume that working and not working means publishable and not publishable. I frame what works and what doesn't work through the lens of what generally leads to better reader enjoyment and better storytelling. Using this not as a guide to what will lead a novel to attain market success, but rather as a direction that anyone who wants to improve at writing for any reason can follow. Writing well is the goal. Writing well might lead to a more publishable novel, a novel that's more successful in the market, but that's a correlation, not an inevitability. One of the few comments that I consistently make about the whole marketing publishing space is it's not the best written novel that sells the most, it's the best advertised novel that sells the most. The quality of your writing and the quality of your story is a factor, but it's not the main factor. The novel that's marketed better will always outsell the novel that's written better and marketed poorly. And as an aside, I will just say that there's no shade here on anyone who has published or wants to publish. Traditional, self-publish, online, if you want to publish, if you want to sell your work, you have my blessing. Artists need to work full-time on their art, and publishing is the way to do that. This is not an anti-publishing video by any means. I fully encourage authors to market their work and make some kind of financial gain from it. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. If anything, I think that the pendulum has swung too far against writers monetizing their work, and we actually need to move it in the other direction. But that's maybe a topic for a different day. Well, it's technically the topic we're talking about today, but we're talking about a different facet of it. So anyway. The truth is, my interest in publishing my own work has actually probably waned in the last year. Want to publish a lot less than I did a year or two ago. At one time, that was something of a major goal for me, but I've sort of been reevaluating. And this reevaluation has come at a time where I'm probably writing more and writing better than I ever have in the past. There's a few reasons that I've shifted my thinking on this recently. One reason is that I'm just hella busy at the moment. I run another business and am starting another business on top of that besides this channel, and this channel really isn't a business. Plus I have my own writing, which I'm putting a lot more effort into, plus these videos that are written, shot, edited, and uploaded all by me in the same week, plus all the other stuff of life. So getting a novel into a publishable position is just not something I have the bandwidth for at the moment. And you might say, but Carl, you say you're spending a lot of time on writing. Well, Writing and publishing a novel are two different activities. Writing is a component of getting a novel published, but it's not the only thing you have to do. Anything that I would have the capacity to publish in this season of my life would not be a good representation of my skills as a writer. Having the skill does not mean you can just automatically, at the drop of a hat, spit out a good novel. You need 6 months or a year of focused work to do that, and I just don't have the time to do that at this moment. And I don't even know if that's something that I want. Writing is something that I really enjoy. Usually, the first hour or 2 hours of my day is always spent on writing. It's one thing that I look forward to. But the thought of writing being a full time thing, of having to put in like a full workday towards writing every single day, I'm not entirely sure that that's what I want out of life. This may come as a shock to some folks, but I am not 24/7 always thinking about writing. I love writing, it's been a lifelong passion of mine, but is it an all consuming thing that I would want to spend every single waking moment doing and talking and thinking about? Probably not. I am a highly nuanced individual with a diverse set of interests that go well beyond writing. You probably don't realize that because all I talk about on this channel is writing, but part of this is just my personality. I'm someone who likes variety. I like divergent thinking that pulls elements from different fields into areas, into new, interesting ideas. There's some evidence of that in the kind of topics that this channel covers with my approach to writing. So I'm just not wired to be about one thing all of the time, every day. I think there's a tendency today to sort of lionize people who are singularly focused on one thing. And if you want to get really good at something, focusing on one thing and only one thing is probably the best way to go. And I think there is a lot of value in that because I think as a culture at the moment, we are way too unfocused. So a little bit of focus is a good thing, but writing for me scratches a particular itch. I see it as a way to explore symbols and themes, to assign meaning to experiences and emotions. I've learned things about myself through the things that come through the characters I write about. I've found that I can better process experiences that I've had by writing about elements of those experiences. I seldom write about characters whose lives fit anything about my life in any sort of recognizable way. But I think finding the little pieces of experience that are common between my life and their life is a really interesting thing, and you can really only do that through writing. I think that writing makes you a better communicator, and not just on a superficial level. Storytelling is really about catching hold of another person's mind and cramming stuff into it while they are completely ensconced and attuned to you. Facts and figures and statistics will bounce off of a person's brain, but a well-crafted narrative will slip right in and take root. This is why there's so many politicians who can say something that is objectively untrue in the measured data and people will respond to it because it's being presented as a story, it's being presented as a narrative rather than just data and information, which the human brain is not built to understand. Fiction is about understanding the world, about putting meaning behind sequences of events. It's one big self-soothing behavior designed to bring comfort to the narrative-seeking parts of our meat-based processing infrastructure. We evolved a mind that seeks meaning in a world that is fundamentally devoid of it. The world is just one long chemical reaction, which underneath is just some physical process, which underneath is just some kind of quantum fluctuation or whatever. We can equation our way towards mathematical understanding of all those particles moving about in space and time, but those equations do nothing to soothe the aching emotional soup that swirls between your ears, which is itself just a chemical reaction, which underneath is just some physical process, which underneath is just some kind of quantum fluctuation, but I digress. Writing is a very personal pursuit. It's a way to tap into something beyond what you can measure. And I think the benefits of writing go beyond just producing a story. Publishing is a nice thing to do. It's great if people have a chance to read your writing, but I don't think it's the main benefit. All of that to say, I think what I've learned the last year or two as I've been reevaluating what direction I want to go with my writing is that what I'm ultimately trying to get out of writing has nothing to do with publishing that writing. And I think if anyone out there is struggling with the same question, that might be the answer. I think one of the biggest problems that a lot of people run into today is a lack of meaning. We've created a world that gives you all sorts of stress, but doesn't really do a good job of communicating the meaning behind that stress. People feel empty, they feel directionless, they feel like they're putting effort in. There's all kinds of burnout and anxiety and depression and loneliness out there. And in this vacuum of meaning, we focus a lot on lowering that stress, on things that make us forget about stress, forget about problems, rather than things that enable us to find the meaning behind all of the difficulty of life. Writing, whether you publish or not, is a way to find more of that meaning. It's a way to put pain into perspective. It opens your eyes to what happens beyond what you can see. It takes randomness and gives it order, or things that appear like randomness and gives them order, and gives them meaning. Does all of this mean anything? I'm not really sure. I feel like I've just been rambling for the last 14 or 15 minutes. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'd love to hear what you think about this in the comments down below, and I will see you next time.